So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the Detroit Lions, I would say, have some pretty high expectations for themselves going into the 2022 NFL season. Right after a 2021 year where they won 3 games, had the second overall pick, and weren't very good statistically in a lot of different categories, the Lions got much better this offseason. They added talent through the draft, they added talent through free agency, and they are maybe not one of the more talented teams in the NFL, but they are certainly more talented than they were a year ago at this point, and they do have expectations of winning many more games in 2022 than they were able to do a year ago. And I think that the more you look at this team, the more you look at the talent that's on the Lions, the more you look at how this team is constructed, they begin to represent a 2021 team more and more by the day, and that would be the 2021 Philadelphia Eagles. The more you look at it, the more you realize that these two teams, the 2021 Eagles and the 2022 Lions, have a lot of similarities and a lot of things in common, including the same holes, the same weaknesses, the same strengths, and hopefully very similar results. So today we're going to take a look at, we're going to compare the two teams, talk about why the Lions could follow a very similar path to the 2021 Philadelphia Eagles, and maybe, just maybe, sneak into a wild card spot come January. But with all that being said, and without any further ado, let's get right on into taking a look at the Detroit Lions and comparing them to the 2021 Philadelphia Eagles. Now, starting off, we are going to look at the Eagles roster a season ago, where their strength came from the trenches. They were a team with a very good offensive line, a very good defensive line, and they ran the football over and over and over again. And they didn't really find their identity early. They weren't a team that started red hot in the NFL year. In fact, they started 2-5 and didn't really find their stride in the NFL season until week 7 when they matched up versus the Detroit Lions. In that game, the Eagles really started to find their identity. They started to find their run game. Their offensive line started playing better. Their quarterback started playing better, and everything just kind of started to click in that Lions game, and they never looked back after that. They continued to run the ball, they continued to stack up wins, and after a 2-5 start, the Philadelphia Eagles ended the season 9-8, sneaking in as the 7th seed in the NFC playoff race. Now, they didn't end up winning a game in the playoffs. They didn't end up, upsetting Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They didn't end up going on a magical Cinderella run or anything like that. But the fact that they made the playoffs after a 2-5 start really speaks to how well the Eagles were constructed, and really speaks to how good of a team they actually were to hold themselves together, to kind of rally behind this rookie head coach, rally behind the talent that they did have, and make a push for the playoffs in December. Now, looking at the 2022 Detroit Lions, they also have or should expect some very good trench play. They are a top 5 offensive line in the NFL, and they are not 4 or 5. They are easily top 3 in the NFL talent-wise, and performance-wise, they should be right up there with the best of the best in the NFL, rivaling somebody like the Cleveland Browns or the Philadelphia Eagles for maybe the best offensive line in football. After a second offseason of the Detroit Lions adding multiple top picks inside the defensive line, the Lions are going into 2022 with players on the defensive line that include Romeo Okwara, Julian Okwara, Aiden Hutchinson, Charles Harris, Ali McNeil, Levi Onwuzurike, Michael Brockers, and Josh Paschal. All of those players that I mentioned were drafted in the 3rd round or above, or I believe in the case of Michael Brockers, was drafted in the 7th, is a 10-year NFL veteran who has, won a lot of games in the NFL. But for the most part, a large part of their defensive line has been drafted in the first 2 days of the NFL draft, and they have put a lot of emphasis in building up the trench play on the defensive side of the football. And I do think that this year is the year that all of that play starts to come together. I do believe that this year is the year that the Lions are going to go from, okay, they have some talent on the defensive side of the ball, to this defense is really going to cause some problems. I think the pass rush is going to be better. The secondary is growing another year under Aaron Glenn and Aubrey Pleasant, and this defense should take a massive stride forward in the 2022 season. But I think just like the Philadelphia Eagles, the Detroit Lions may not find their stride until the bye week, or maybe even a little bit after. The Detroit Lions kind of start this season a little bit rough. Despite having the 28th strength of schedule in the NFL, they open the season versus, funnily enough, the Philadelphia Eagles in week 1, which is going to be an extremely tough matchup for them. But then you go down the line and you play New England in week 4, you play Dallas in week 6, you play Miami in week 7, you play Green Bay in week 8, and all of those teams are likely going to be in the playoff race, if not in the playoffs entirety, by the end of the season. The only real games where I would say the Detroit Lions on paper have a better matchup would be week 2 versus Washington and week 3 versus the Seattle Seahawks. So it isn't unlikely that the Detroit Lions will come out of their bye week, or even go into Chicago in week 10 at a 2-5 or 2-6 record, kind of like the Philadelphia Eagles did a year ago. But then the season starts to get a little easier. Then Jameson Williams comes back from injury. Maybe by this time Romeo Okwara is fully back and fully healthy from injury. At this time, the defense should be clicking. The defense should be good to go. By this time, the offense should be clicking. You add a huge weapon in Jameson Williams, right? Your offensive line is continuing to grind people away and is continuing to be a huge threat on both the ground and for the passing attack. And then you go in and you play Chicago, you play Jacksonville, you play New York, and you play the Jets and the Giants both in the same season. You go to Carolina, you go to, not great football teams, right? Not that all those teams are bad necessarily, but the start of the season where you're playing Green Bay, you're playing But the start of the season where you're playing Philly and New England, and you're playing, Miami and Dallas and Green Bay, compared to the second half of the season where you're playing Chicago, you're playing Jacksonville, you're playing both New York teams, you're playing Carolina, it's a really drastic difference in talent between the first half and the second half of the season. And the Lions are set up to be perfect, and the Lions are set up in a perfect situation to not only find their stride in that first half of the season, but excel in the second half of the season, because they will have their stride. They will find their groove in the NFL season, and their competition for a large majority of the second half of this season is worse than it is in the first half. So if they can survive the first 2 months of the season with 2 or 3 wins, right? They rattle off a win versus maybe Minnesota in week 3, Seattle in week 4, or Washington in week 2, or maybe they upset somebody like New England, or maybe they upset Miami at home. If they can do those things and walk out of the first 2 months of the NFL season 2-6, 3-5, they should be in a perfect spot, right? They will work out all of the things that need to be worked out early in the season, right? They will get all the rust off early versus some very good teams and get the matchups early that will help them work out some of the kinks in their system. And by time that they find their groove, by time that they find what works for them, and by time they find their identity on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, you're playing Chicago, you're playing Jacksonville, you're playing the Giants, you're playing the Jets, you're playing the Panthers, and then you're playing Chicago again, right? It's 6-7 games right there that the Lions should be able to win, and they won't win all of them, but they should win a lot of those 6 games, if not 4+. Then I think that would be underachieving at that point. And with a 3-win start and a 4-5 win finish, that puts you right on pace for 9-8, right? 9-8, 8-9, somewhere within the wild card race at the end of the season, just like Philadelphia did a season ago. I think there's a lot of really key similarities between these two teams, right? Offensively, your quarterback is good, but not great. Your quarterback can win you some games, but isn't going to be the sole reason why you win games. Your offensive line is elite. Your running back is a very good runner and pass catcher. You have some pretty good weapons, right? The Eagles last year had, obviously, Devontae Smith out of Alabama. The Lions this season have Jameson Williams Out of Alabama, right, the tight end situation, Dallas Goedert is pretty good. TJ Hawkinson, I'd say, is a little bit better, but not that much better. The offenses are kind of constructed similarly. On defense, right, the front seven should be really, really big, especially the front four on that defensive line. Linebacker play might not be great, but linebacker play should be at least good enough. And then the secondary, it's a young secondary. It's a lot of unproven guys, but they do have that one breakout star that is going to lead the team. For the Eagles, that was Darius Slay. For the Lions, that is obviously Amani Oruwariye. The teams are very similar. The teams are constructed almost identically to how the Lions are constructed, nearly identically to how the Philadelphia Eagles were a season ago, and with a easier schedule this season, with more time under this coaching staff and the introduced talent from the 2022 draft class, the Detroit Lions are in prime position to repeat what Philadelphia did a season ago. And even though they may not start super hot in the NFL season, they, I believe, will finish incredibly strong, just like they did a season ago. And by week 17, by week 18, the Lions may be going into Lambeau Field with a shot at the wild card. But with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think the Lions can replicate what the Eagles did last year? Do you think the Lions, by the end of the season, can be vying and pushing for that wild card spot? Or do you think that they're not quite ready to make that push just yet? I'd be very curious what you guys think. With all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.